Hello. In the final video for this module, we're going to look at adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing complex numbers. So we can just go ahead and get started. I have 4 examples here. For adding complex numbers, really we can treat these 2i, 3i, I, we can treat them as variables. So really what we're going to end up doing is we're going to add all of the numbers together. So 3 plus 1 plus negative 7. And then we're going to add up all the i's together. And then we're just going to make sure we're adding from left to right, though it doesn't really matter in this case. So 3 plus 1 is 4, plus negative 7 is negative 3. And then we have negative 2i plus 3i would be I, minus I is 0. So really we would just say negative 3. Same thing with subtraction, though again, we need to be careful when we're subtracting. We want to make sure we're subtracting from left to right. But I'm going to break it up again as 3 minus 1 minus negative 7. And then we have negative 2i minus 3i plus I. So I put a plus here because normally we're going to write our complex numbers as a plus bi. So when I'm splitting it apart, I'm thinking about this a part with the numbers plus this part with the I. And then we have that negative 2i minus 3i minus negative I. All right, so let's combine everything. So we have 3 minus 1 is 2, plus 7 is 9, plus negative 2i minus 3i is negative 5i, plus I would be negative 4i. So really, when we're writing it in our normal form, we would say 9 minus 4i. So with the addition and subtraction, really we're just combining it how we normally would. Just treat these i's as if they were variables so that we can add all the numbers together and then add all of the variables, these i's, together. So multiplying complex numbers, again, would be like multiplying when we have 3 minus 2x. We will distribute. So we have 3 times 1, and then that 3 times 3i, so we have 3 plus 9i. And then we also have minus 2i times 1, so minus 2i, and then minus 6i squared. Now, what we want to remember is this I squared. We know what that is. I squared is negative 1. So we can actually reduce this a little bit more. We can say this is 3 plus 9i minus 2i. Well, if I squared is negative 1, negative 6 times negative 1 is positive 6. And now we can combine our like terms. So we have 9 plus 7i. So I said this as distribution. If you know this as FOIL, you can go ahead and do that as FOIL, but I prefer distribution as it's a little bit more flexible. And I'll go ahead and show that much later in a different video. All right, finally, dividing complex numbers is a little bit more tricky than before. Our goal is to get something in the form of a plus bi. And in order to do that, we need to get rid of this complex part on the bottom, this plus 3i. And how we're going to do that is multiplying by the conjugate. So the complex conjugate, if I have a plus bi, is a minus bi. And the reason that this is the complex conjugate, and I'll put this to the side as we're talking about it, is if I multiply these two together, I get a squared minus abi, and then I get plus abi minus b squared I squared. So you can see this inside part is going to cancel. I'll have a squared, and then I squared is negative 1. So this actually comes out as a squared plus b squared. And you can see we've gotten rid of the i's. So that's what we're going to do in this case. We have 3 minus 2i, 1 plus 3i. So what I want to do is I want to multiply by 1 minus 3i. Now, in order to not change the number, I need to multiply by 1, which means I need to multiply the top and bottom by the same thing, right? Because if I do that, I'm really just changing the way this number looks, but I'm not really changing the number itself. And then now we're going to rely on what we did before when we're distributing. So on the top, I have 3 minus 9i minus 2i plus 6i squared. Again, I like to distribute the 3 times the 1, the 3 times the 3i, negative 2i times the 1, negative 2i times the negative 3i. So now on the bottom, I know that the middles are going to cancel, so I can even ignore that and just go to 1 times 1 is 1. 3i times negative 3i is negative I squared. Now what I'll do is I'll make sure I change my I squareds to negative 1. That'll give me 3 minus 9i minus 2i minus 6, 1 plus 9. And now if I combine all my like terms, on the top I have negative 3 minus 11i all over 10. So one more step, it doesn't quite look like that a plus bi. So I'm going to divide each of these parts by 10. And when I do that, you can see that it's now in that nice a plus bi form. So again, in order to divide complex numbers, I need to multiply by the complex conjugate. So if I had a plus bi, it's just a minus bi. And when I did that, I wanted to make sure I multiply on the top and the bottom so that it's the same thing. And that's everything that we need to do with the complex numbers.